Hey everyone, today we're going to be going over aiming in Unreal, and specifically third-person aiming. I went ahead and started here in the third-person template, and you can see I actually have my character here running around. This is just kind of the default for if you open up a third-person template. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting it up so that this character will have their upper body in an aim pose, aiming typically a weapon, right, wherever the camera is pointed. And so in this case, I'm not going to be adding in the weapon. I'll just be putting the character in that position. But it's pretty straightforward to add in a weapon if you do that. So let's do this. Let's jump in. And if I come down here into this aim folder, I actually have brought in a handful of animations. I got these from Epic. They released their Lyra project, and this is just a bunch of aim animations that are in there. So you can get them there as well. There's also an animation starter pack. You could use those. Or if you happen to have your own, the only thing you got to do is just make sure that the aims work with the skeleton that you're going to be using, and ideally that you have a specific animation, not just a pose, but an animation that works with them, and that they're all kind of derived from. So go ahead in here and go into your aim folder, whatever folder you have your animations in, and we're going to go ahead and create an aim offset. So I just create that here. I'm going to choose my skeleton, call this rifle aim, because these are based on a rifle. And then I'm going to go ahead here. I'm actually just going to change this to Manny because that's the skeleton that I've been using. And then I, over here on the left, under Asset Details, for the horizontal axis, I want to call this yaw, and then do -90 for a minimum and 90 for maximum. That's just, the full left-right angle that this character can aim. And then I'm going to go ahead and check the box that says Snap to Grid. Vertical axis, I'm going to title it pitch, and again, -90 and 90, and then we're going to go ahead and snap to grid, just like that. Over here, I'm going to type in ADS, just so I can get all of my aim animations in here. If you're not familiar with ADS, it just means aim down sights. So we got our rifle idle, aim down sights, and then AO stands for aim offset. And CC is center center. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to go ahead and click on this CC and drag it to the middle here. I'm going to do CD is center down, CU center up, LC is left center, left down, left up, and then right center, right down, and right up. And now if I hold control down, you can see the character is aiming all over the place. Got our full left, right, we got our down and up, and so there you have it. You have your aim offset. One little caveat here that I want to draw your attention to is over here on the left, this additive settings, I need to have the rifle idle ADS, that animation that I was talking about earlier, the one that I had in my folder here under idle. I need to have that in here as my preview base pose. This is the pose that will be the base. That's why it's called the preview base. Will be the pose that all of the aim offsets are derived from. So the aim offset will actually create a delta. It'll show you the difference, that's what delta means, between the base pose and whatever pose that you're looking for. And then that's what it's going to actually end up applying once we get it in game. Okay, so one thing of note to mention about this before I forget is that each of these individual animations, they have to have set up here under additive settings. They need to be set up under mesh space and under base pose type. Selected animation frame should be there, and that's just because this just happens to be a single frame of animation, so that's why you choose that. Mesh space is as opposed to local space. You can read the documentation and look at the differences between those, but in most cases it's going to be mesh space. And then right here, you want your base pose animation to be in here. If you happen to have, if you pull in aims from, different projects or whatever, and you think, oh, it shouldn't be any problem, it looks like it's the same character. If they happen to have a different base pose, when you go into that that aim offset, let me open my aim offset back up. When you come in here and you drag your first one in, it'll work because it's going to look at that preview base pose and it's going to go ahead and apply it. If you grab a second one and it doesn't have the same base pose in here, maybe it has none set up or something like that, it will just disappear when you go to drag it in here. So keep that in mind. It won't give you an error or anything. You got to make sure that all of those additive settings are set up to be the same before you come in here and start dragging and dropping them in. All right. So now let's jump into our animation BP. So if I open up my anim BP, go into the anim graph, this is just the default setup for this character. Nothing's changed so far. We've got that aim offset, but we need to actually bring that in here and do something with it. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in that aim offset. I'm going to promote yaw and pitch to a variable, and so that I have those in here. And then off of this base pose, I need to create a there happens to be a layered blend per bone node that I need, and I'm going to get that. And so here I have my layered blend per bone, and I want that in here. I'm going to go ahead and drag this in here, but this blend pose is 0. This blend pose is input. I need to go ahead and get that idle, that rifle idle that I in here. Now let's see if I get which one of these is the one that I want. It's just this bottom one here. So I bring that in here. That's that animation that I was talking about. That's kind of the base pose, the base animation. I bring that in here, and then I'm going to bring this up in here, and we're going to bring this over here. But this isn't doing anything yet. Even if I compile, you'll notice character doesn't do anything. And you're like, well, what's going on? How come he's not aiming? Well, the reason it's not doing anything is because this bone or this node hasn't been set up yet. So if we come over here to the right, go ahead and select that layered blend per bone and come over here to the right, and you go ahead and click on this plus right underneath your layer setup. What we're doing here is we're selecting a bone in the skeleton where we want to start our layered animation or our additional animation. So we have our state machine up here that's giving us whatever the output is here, our run, our walk, our idle, or whatever. But we want this aim to be layered on top of it. Well, where do we want to start that layering? We want to start it right here. It says bone name at spine 01. And then I want to give it a blend depth of 5. And I'm going to go over why I'm going to give it a 5 blend depth here in a second. But let's just say I did that 5. I compile. Notice now my character is actually aiming. So we got that all working. And that's all because this is at a spine 01 and a blend depth of 5. So what's happening is if we go back into the rifle aim offset here, and we go into the skeleton tree, you'll notice that I have spine joint 01 all the way through spine 05. So I have 5 spine joints, and I want the blend to happen over all 5 of those. So what that means is you probably have, starting here at spine 01, we're going to have, say, 20%, and then spine 02, 40, 60, 80, and finally 100% at the 5th depth. Right? So that's what that's doing. It's gradually applying this aim animation over the course of the entire spine. And so that's what we get. But we're not done yet. We don't actually have the ability to get this character to aim in any direction yet because yaw and pitch don't have anything kind of driving them. Yeah, we have two variables, but these are both set at 0, and because they're set at 0, this character is really not doing anything. If I was to change this variable, I could get the character to, like, point up, as you can see, but right now I need that to be driven by your input as the player. So let's go into the event graph, and I want to create a function in here. You could do all this in here, but let's just do it a little bit more cleanly by creating a function, and I'm going to call this calculate pitch and yaw. And in here, I'm going to try get pawn owner real quick. Try get pawn owner, and then off of this, I'm going to say get get control rotation, and I want this second one. There's two here. They both look the same, but the second one has a target of pawn. You see, in this first one is target of the controller. We want the target is the pawn, and then I want to get the actor rotation. I can spell and do that, and then I want to get the delta between these two. So get that. And so now we have the direction that the camera is facing, and that is the direction that the character is facing. And the delta between these two is what's going to be this return value right here. All right. So from here, we want to interpolate to this in a smooth way. So we're going to do an R interp2, and we want this to be the target. And right here, we want to actually have, we're going to make a rotator. So make rotator. And we want the pitch and yaw to be plugged in right here. So we have our pitch and we have our yaw. And so the pitch and yaw coming in here like this. And then let's delta seconds, get delta seconds for that. And then over here on the right, we're going to go ahead and split the struct value. And for this, we want to clamp the angle and to -90, and 90 is max. So again, for pitch, this is going to be your up and down. I'm going to copy this and paste it and use the same thing for yaw. And then these two outputs are going to drive yaw and pitch, right? We're going to set those values. So again, what's happening here is as we set this up, just a quick little function. Let's drag this over here so it's just a little bit cleaner. Compile that. So what we have going on here is like I mentioned, we're getting the difference between where the camera is facing and the direction that the character is facing. And then over a specific time, we are going to interpolate to the from where you are currently facing to this new target, and we want to set that to the pitch and yaw variables. And this interp speed right here, 1 would be really slow, 15 would be really quick. I think when you're aiming at something specifically with a rifle, which is the situation in this case, you probably want the rifle to, or your character to aim there quickly, and so we're going to set it up to 15. And then let's jump back in to our event graph, and this isn't actually going to be, that function, unless it's called, isn't really going to do anything for us. So let's create I just went ahead and click add pin here to create a new pin, and then I'm going to call this this pitch and yaw function that I just did. And then I'm going to go ahead and comment it and say I'm calculating the pitch and yaw. And that way it just is commented like all the rest of it. And so there we have that. Let's go ahead and compile this, save it, jump back in here, and see how it looks. There you have it. So you have your character aiming up, down, and it's limited, so it's clamped, like I mentioned, to 90 degrees to the left and 90 degrees to the right, 90 degrees above and 90 degrees below. If you wanted to set up a system where they actually like rotated farther, like 180 or something like that, you could, but just know that that's the way that it's currently set up. So the character will, aim in the direction that the camera is facing. One other thing I did kind of want to show is that layering over 5 bones kind of allows you to get a nicer blend. If I escape out of this and we jump back into this and go into our anim graph and open up this layered blend per bone and do 1, let's watch the character here. When I hit compile, he's going to lean farther forward. Notice that? And the reason that's happening is because the entire blend or the entire animation is being blended onto his lowest spine joint. And this animation was taken from a more aggressive stance. So the character's kind of more leaning forward, probably has a wider foot stance. I just happen to use the kind of default unarmed one that I have here. But you see that this aim is kind of leaning farther forward. If I if I go in the game to play it, just to show you what it looks like, you can see the character's actually leaning a lot farther forward by default. And so that's because all that animation is being applied right at that lowest spine joint. So it definitely looks better, specifically in this situation, to apply it over 5. But let's say it doesn't have to be the spine. If I wanted, pelvis, for example, and I wanted to do that, you could have the pelvis be applied. But let's take a look at how horrible that looks once we get in game. So we get it in here. So you can see that pelvis isn't moving because the aim offset, the pelvis isn't moving at all, right? So it's just a pose and there's no real animation being applied. So that's why it's important to, start it above the pelvis and something that doesn't, at the spine level. So hopefully this makes sense and you can get a better idea of how all of these different elements of the aim offset work. And hopefully enjoyed the process of going along for the ride and learning how to do aim offsets in Unreal 5.2.